Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Brian and welcome to Classic G-Body Garage. Sitting next to me is my 1988 Cutlass Supreme Classic that I had towed here about 5 or 6 years ago. A friend of mine found this car for me, sitting next to an old barn about an hour south of here. He passed it on his way to work every single day and ended up stopping at the house and asking if the car was for sale just because it's been sitting there for so long and no one has ever done anything with it as far as he can remember. Fortunately, the car was for sale, or at least the people were willing to let it go. He hooked up his trailer and towed it here to Classic G-Body Garage. I do have a complete video on this car that I'll link up there or down in the description below, just so you guys can check out the overall condition when it first arrived here at Classic G-Body Garage. Now, over these 5 or 6 years, I ended up parting the car out, using all sorts of parts for different builds that I've had, or sold the parts to other people that have needed them for their own builds. Now, since the time that I've had the car, I'd never once tried to get this car running. It has an Olds 307 in it, and it has a 204R transmission, and just the overall condition of the car, why even bother getting the car running? But you know what? I figured, why not? Considering it has a complete driveline in it, and I'm also tired of dragging the car around the property when I need to move it. I have to hook it up to my old truck, which barely runs to begin with. And this past summer, I ended up getting concrete inside of the garage. Had to pull all the backfill out of there, the gravel, and put it next to the garage where this car was. So I had to drag it out with my truck, and like I said, I'm tired of dragging the car around. Let's see if this old 307 will fire back up and see if the car will move under its own power. Now, I ended up starting this video about 1.5 years ago when the car was sitting next to the garage. So let me go ahead and kick it off from there. All right, so let me open this thing up. I'll grab the camera and I'll show you what we look like all around the car and under this hood here. All right, so under the hood there is an Olds 307, and I kind of forget how many miles it has on it. The speedometers and dash has already been removed out of the car, but it's in pretty rough shape underneath here. It has been some time since I've been underneath here, just pulling parts here and there, but it looks like some mice have been making themselves at home. And also, what I noticed when I pulled the air cleaner off of it several years ago, it was all orange on top, like water has been sitting on top of the air cleaner, and you can see that the carburetor definitely has seen some water. But it does move, so it's not frozen. So maybe just the water sat on top and it didn't make its way down inside. But before anything, I want to see if this motor will crank over, so I'll have to get a breaker bar on the end of that crank and see if this thing will spin over. But this is what it looks like under the hood, just a real mess. Front end of the car completely gone, destroyed. You can see the big dent in the fender here. Windshield busted up. I kind of did that, but this was a real nice car back in the day. T-tops, it had bucket seats. You can see more damage here on the door, the quarter panel, but I've been parting it out over time. Looks like things are growing inside of it as well. It's a greenhouse with these T-tops. Dashboard completely gone. Full interior, had bucket seats and console. T-tops. Was a nice car back in the day. It's unfortunate that these G-bodies get into the wrong hands and just kind of get beat up and left for dead. It was really rusted as well. See all the dents and rot. But I did use quite a few parts off of it. Use the rear bumper, or gonna use the rear bumper from or for another car of mine. Just see some more rust here. It had the original aluminum wheels. I might actually use the frame because the frame's in good shape. But everything's just in real poor shape on the car. You can see there's just dents everywhere. Doors not in terrible shape, but they're all dented up. But the roof is all rotted on the car. The pillars are all rusted. So there's really no saving this car due to the condition of the body and the rust on the roof. You can see all the rot on the roof here as well. So parts it is. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually cut the belts off this thing, because the belts are literally rusted to the pulleys, which is going to make it difficult for anything to turn over here. So probably I'll leave one of them, at least so it has a water pump. But you can see that these things are literally welded to the pulleys, so it's gonna prevent it from turning over at all. Man, yeah, these things are stuck. Wow, the belt even came off on the pulley, so there's particles still left on the pulley. So yeah, that won't help matters when it comes to trying to turn it over. Alright, so I have all the belts off except for the power steering, which I'll leave on with hopes that it runs. Maybe I'll need it. I got my big, huge ratchet here on the harmonic balancer bolt, so let's see if this will turn over. Oh boy, it doesn't want to turn. Come on. Oh, turned. It's turning. It broke free. Oh, is it hard though? Man, is it hard. It really doesn't want to turn over very easily at all. It's turning. It's getting easier. All right, so it's getting a little bit easier now. It's a little bit hard. It's like hard and easy, hard and easy. But good news that it is turning over. Oh, it's tight. It's tight in that one spot. So what I'm going to do now, since it turned over, looks like I can get a full revolution out of it, is I'm going to pull these spark plugs out and dump some oil down the plug holes, and then go ahead and give it a few more revolutions with the oil in it, just to let things soak in oil. If there's a little bit of rust on the cylinder walls, it doesn't damage things too much. Hopefully I didn't mess things up doing that, but honestly I'm not too concerned about this motor. I'm just kind of curious to see if it'll fire up, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it was left for dead anyways. Alright, everything is all blown off, so it's all nice and clean, no risk of potential fires if this thing decides to fire up. But something that I noticed that I wanted to show you all when I was cleaning this off is I found several plug wires that appear to have been cut, which I have no idea why they would have been cut. All I can think of is, considering what I heard, is that the previous owner was a drunk and all he did was run into things with this car. Maybe one of his friends or family members just decided to cut the spark plug wires on the car so he couldn't fire it back up and drive it anymore. Who knows? But let me grab the wrench and start pulling these plug wires, or these spark plugs out. Alright, you can see the condition of the spark plugs here. The majority of them on the passenger bank, looks like 2 out of the 4, the 2 middle ones, appear to be rusted. Has some rust residue on the ends of them, or at least on the area where the threads go, right there. So the other 2 look to be okay. You can check out the driver's side here. Maybe about 2 or just 1 is rusted as well. That one right there is rusted. So let me grab the oil can, gonna fill it with transmission fluid and pump these cylinders with some oil and get this engine turning over a lot more smoothly than it is now. Alright, I have oil in all the cylinders, and I also tightened up this pulley so it wouldn't drag on the water pump anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and spin this thing over a little bit with the trans fluid in it. It's still pretty tight. Ooh, is it real tight actually? But maybe it'll loosen up. It's loose, but then there's a real tight spot. Man, is this thing sharp. Yeah, that is tight. But I'm hoping it spins past it. Yeah, see, it's getting even easier. Then there's that real tight spot that it seems to be getting easier. Yep, real tight spot right there. Alright, I have the battery all hooked up. I have the wire going down to the solenoid. Let me get out of the way just in case this thing decides to puke trans fluid. Let's see if it'll crank over. Oh, here it goes. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Oh, the starter, maybe the starter's not any good. Alright, let me see if I can give this thing a few whacks and get it to engage. Alright, I have the starter here on the back of one of my other parts cars, and I have it all hooked up just so I could basically bench test it and make sure that the solenoid is working, it's kicking the starter gear out, and then the starter motor itself spins. So I have the power, or the positive I should say, hooked to the main lead of the solenoid. Of course I have my wire coming off the solenoid itself, and then I have the other jumper cable grounded to the body of the starter, to the negative lead of negative terminal of the battery. So I'm going to go ahead and touch the solenoid wire on here and see what happens. Of course, it works. The gear comes out and the starter spins. So that means that I must have some sort of either power or ground issue with the car itself. Now there's no main wiring harness in it, but I do have the negative and positive cables. So either the ground, this grounds to the engine block, either that ground is dirty, which I'll double check that, or this cable is not working properly. So this could also be an issue in not getting power down to the starter itself. What I ended up doing is scrounging through my stash of parts, got an original cable here and ran it to the starter, and I have everything all hooked up. This cable looks to be in good shape. So ground is grounded to the battery in the starter. So let me see if this starter will turn over this time. I'll ground my connect my jumper wire. Right. So the starter's engaging. Starter's engaging and spinning over, so everything seems to look good. So I'm going to disconnect this battery cable, run it back down where it should, get the starter back in here, and see if this starter will crank this 307 over. Alright, the starter is back in. I ran the cable back up through the factory area. So let me grab the battery, hook this thing up, got the jumper wire in place, get this thing hooked up and see if it'll crank over. Alright, the battery is hooked up. Alright, well let's go. See what'll happen. It might shoot some fluid out of the cylinders, depending on how much is left in there. So I'm going to step out of the way, see if it'll crank over. Ah, there it goes. Come on. Ow, hot, 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 hot. Woo! Hot. Alright, well everything's cranking over. It is spitting some fluid out of some of the cylinder holes. Not as much as I thought. I didn't put a whole lot down in there, I guess, but at least it's cranking over without any more restrictions. Seems to be pretty loose. It almost seems like it has pretty good compression. I'm not going to do a compression test on this. We're just going to roll with it. So next step is going to be put these spark plugs back in, clean out the threads, put them back in, and run a set of wires. Dump a little gas down the carb. This carburetor is, it's spitting. Oh God. This thing's pumping gas. Oh man. This thing is pumping old gas. Wow, 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 wow. This thing is pumping old gas. The carburetor is full of gas, and it's probably dumping it right down inside the motor. That's gasoline. Wow. This thing is pulling gas from the tank. So that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm going to disconnect. It actually smells, okay, believe it or not. But let me grab the camera and I'll show you. It's like it pumped it full. And I know that this carburetor is gummed up on the inside just based on the corrosion that I thought I saw. So I thought the carb was wet, but this thing has pumped gas up. You can see the wetness down there. It's all wet. And also, look at that. Gasoline is just sitting in the secondaries. The butterflies are closed. I'm going to try to suck that up. Alright, so the carburetor is all sucked out, got the raw gas out of the secondaries. Definitely know the fuel pump is good because I've never seen a carburetor float over to the point where it's dumping gas into the secondaries. So carburetor has to come off, be pulled apart, clean, see if it's salvageable, because I know that water has gotten in there just based on the condition of the carburetor itself on top. So I'm guessing that things might be froze up inside of there, including the float. So actually, you know what, I gotta check the oil, make sure the oil isn't contaminated from that raw gas going down inside the carburetor there. I really don't want to change the oil in it just yet until I find out that it runs. So I hope that it's not contaminated. It's dirty, it's full, it doesn't smell like gas or anything like that, so I think we're in good shape. Let me grab my tools and get this carb pulled off of here and get it apart and see what it looks like. Alright, well there you go. That's what the carburetor looks like inside. And if you take a look at, if I can get the light down in there, you can see all that residue down inside the secondaries. That'll give you a good idea of what I found in the bottom of the intake manifold as well. All that rust and corrosion, all that was running down inside the intake manifold, and that's a good reason why that motor was locked up. I have no idea if this motor is even going to run right. It does turn over now like you saw, but it's had water in it for some time, so I don't know if those piston rings are any good. But hey, that's what this video is all about. Let me go ahead and grab another carburetor, see if I can salvage anything out of this one, and get something back together and see if that 307 will fire up. Alright, everything is good with the carburetor. Everything's tight. Fuel line's tightened up, and I got the vacuum line on the brake booster, pending we have brakes. So I grabbed a set of spark plug wires from my parts stash. I think I robbed these off of another parts car, an Olds 307. Kind of a mismatched set. I don't know if they're any good, but I guess we'll find out. But at least they're better than what's on the car. Everything is completely eaten up or non-existent, so I'm going to pull these off of here. Get rid of these. these on here. All right, good to go there. All right, plug wires are on. Let's get a battery in this thing, and we'll run some power to the distributor. All right, battery's good and tight. This is my my jumper wire from the starter solenoid. Let's see if this thing will crank over. Kind of slow. Battery might be a little bit dead, or not dead, but low. But it does crank. Hopefully it's enough to make some spark. So let's see if this thing will actually make spark. I think I have my spark tester in my pocket. Spark tester. Let's pull number 1 back off. Actually, I think I'm going to clip it to the smog pump pipe right here because it's stainless steel. It's bolted, it's threaded into the head. It should be a good ground. All right, here we go. It's got spark. It's a good sign. Never had one of these HEIs let me down. I swear these things are extremely reliable. All right, so actually I'm ready to fire this thing up. So I'll double check the oil one last time. I'm gonna put a little bit of gas into the float bowl of the carburetor to fill up those bowls a little bit, or the main bowl. I'll dump a little bit of gas down the throat of the carburetor right here, and let's see if it'll kick over. If I know it kicks over, then I'll go ahead and hook up a gas can to it. All right, I got my little gas bottle here. You can see how dark the gas is. That's because I'm using 2-cycle gas. This is 32-to-1 mix. Just want a little bit of gas oil mixture, just for the first time firing this thing up and who knows how long. So that'll kind of help lube things up a little bit. So I'm sticking the little pipe down the bowl vent right here. Fill it up a little bit. I'll dump some down the carb itself too. Since that choke is stuck closed, I gotta find something to hold it open. So I'm gonna hold the carburetor open, or the choke flap open, because I don't want it to choke itself out. All right, power to the battery, or yeah, battery's got power. Power to the starter, to the distributor. Yeah, let's see if this thing will kick over. First time, and who knows how long. Let's try it out. Hey, did something. Starter didn't sound good. Come on. Oh, it tried. All right, come on. Maybe just need more gas. Need more gas down there. Might not be liking the 2-cycle. Oh wait, we have a very weak accelerator pump. Get a little bit more gas down this float bowl. Here we go. She's not happy. Woo! Wow. I wonder if I've got these wires on backwards. think I do. I'm gonna have to double check that because I don't want this thing shooting flames anymore. All right, the spark plug wires are fine, which I thought they were. The firing order is all good. I don't know if the plug wires themselves are fine, but at least the firing order is correct. So what I'm thinking is this thing doesn't like that 32-to-1 mixture. It might be a little bit too rich on the oil end of it, so I reduced it down with regular gas and give this a little taste of the regular gas down there and see what happens. Now stop shooting flames at me. Here we go. All right, all right, all right. It's better than it was. No flames. It ran as long as it has, so actually the choke seems to be working. So pulled the wrench out of there and let's fill this thing up with some regular gas and see what happens. Let's go. Get my face out of here. Come on. Here we go. Yeah. All right, all right. It must have been flooded too. I might have flooded it out. It sounded like a little bit. It sounded like it was flooded. It was chugging a bit, a little smoky. But hey, it ran. It ran who knows how long. So I'm gonna add a little bit more gas inside the float bowl. It should have ran longer than that. I don't know if this carburetor's any good, to be honest with you. I mean, I just threw this thing together as well. I might hook up a gas can, but let me see if it'll fire once more with the gas in the float bowl. And if it does, we'll hook up a gas can and we'll see if it'll run off of a gas can. All right, grab the hose and a gas can. Let's just hope this hose reaches. Fire up, stay running. Cover's leaking. Yeah, it is smoking bad. Might clear up a little bit. You can hear how loud the motor is. Hear that? That is not a good sound. Well, hey, it runs, it smokes a lot, and it has a loud internal noise. But hey, at least It runs after who knows how long this car's been sitting. It's had a rough life, but it is still running. Boy, I got this thing purring like a kitten now, and I'll show you what I did. So before it had a little bit of a high idle, I thought the choke wasn't working correctly, but the fast idle is completely off. And what's happening is, and I also had the idle screw down here backed off as well. So this little gizmo right here is a vacuum diaphragm for the air conditioning. When you turn the air conditioning on, it kicks up the throttle to compensate for the AC compressor coming on. Since I don't have any vacuum running to it, it's not pulled down. So it was kicking the idle up too high. It was kicking it up like that. So I went ahead and adjusted that back down so it was off of the throttle plate. So now it's idling down, it's running smooth. It runs beautiful actually, and it's really unfortunate that the motor has an internal noise, an internal knock. Who knows of the history of this car? But that was knocking as soon as I fired it up. So it's unfortunate, but then again, it is only a 307, but this thing is running really nice. But what I want to do next is, since I have the floor cut out and I can get to the transmission linkage right there, I want to see if this thing will go into gear, reverse drive. Can't drive it down the street. Brakes are completely gone on the car. I already pushed the brake pedal down. Non-existent. But I do want to see if the car will go into gear. I don't have a steering column either, but let me grab a steering column. I can see if I can throw it in there, and I can get the car to go up and down the driveway and see if it moves. All right, I got the steering column in it. Door's closed. So let's fire this thing back up, see if the transmission works. Don't let me down now. Also got an auxiliary gas can sitting up top there. Let it warm up for a minute. It's been sitting here for a while. This thing's starting so fast. Here we go. T-tops. Kinda got steering. Here we go. Got reverse. No brakes. Neutral. Park. All right guys, well, that's pretty much it. Through here. This old 307, this old 88 Cutlass that's been sitting in my yard for 5 years in a field for who knows how long, and now it runs and moves under its own power after I got it completely freed up from a locked up motor.